Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, it is I am the one and only Sonic the Hedgehog here, aka the Blue Blur, aka Blue Justice, and I am back for the likes of the Mexi Toys videos as always. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome back for some more of Let's Play of Sonic Rush for the Nintendo DS. So last time we've essentially did manage to went into Zone 5, which appears to be Huge Crisis, and also we did somehow went into Zone 6, which appears to be Altitude Limit. Mind you about the fact that I did die quite a lot of times in Journey Forms of it Altitude Limit. Last is mainly because of this unexpected bottomless pits, and on top of that, instant death lasers, and you name the rest. Oh, in addition to that, we also did manage to able to obtain the 5th Chaos Emerald, as well as the 6th Chaos Emerald. So, anyway, today for this video is about the fact that I think this might actually be the finale of Sonic's story. And because of that though, here we are on the forms of Zone 7, which appears to be Deadline. So obviously, much like the forms of any other Sonic games, since in Journey forms within Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, where basically though is about the fact that this stage right here takes place into outer space. Although, relatively speaking though, is about the fact that we have to utilize with the forms of some interesting gimmicks around here, ranging from gravity, and on top of that there's also some cannons, and most infamous obstacles of them all though, that's what appears to be those rockets, which I'll get to more details about the forms of those rockets until whenever we continue proceedings for this. So, and I think fundamentally speaking though, is about the fact that we're able to actually say this right now, that we're most able to guarantee to get ourselves the 7th and the final Chaos Emerald in Sonic's story. And as a result, once we're done with that, we are basically done everything for the special stages in Sonic Rush. So I'm not joking what I'm saying is about the fact that that will be only one specific attempt when it comes to able to try to experience these special stages, all things considered, because, you know, it feels remarkably similar to the forms of how it does on any other Sonic Events games. To be more specifically, Sonic Events 1 as well as Sonic Events 3, that unlike in Sonic Events 2, that you need to obtain multitude of Chaos Emeralds only because of this multiple playable characters you can able to experience from. So because of that though, yeah, you get the idea for this point. Speaking of the special stage though, this special stage right here, Special Stage 7, is without a doubt is the hardest special stage in the entire game. For one reason or another, and that's mainly because in the beginning portion, obviously much like the forms of how it does it on Special Stage 4, we need to obtain 160 rings, and guess what? The first half is the hardest aspect about this special stage right here, because you wanna know why? Because you're able to collect lesser amount of rings around here, and on top of that, so many spike balls, and on top of that, it's definitely a lot more trickier. So no matter what though, you have to be pixel perfect, because otherwise, if you keep on getting hit multiple times, then obviously you lose 10 rings. So because of that though, yeah, it's definitely a lot difficult. Although, thankfully though, if we somehow managed able to get past this point right here, so mind you about the fact that whenever I first got to this special stage back then, it did took me about, let's just say 50 attempts in Journey Forms of this special stage. Although thankfully though, there was actually a useful trick you can able to actually do if you keep on struggling with this particular final special stage right here. And in fact, luckily I was up by 2 rings, so well technically 1 ring to be more specifically, so that'll be enough, so that way we can able to proceed onto the final section in Journey Forms of this whole entire stage. So because of that though, and relatively speaking though, we need to collect about 320 rings. So because of that though, and thankfully though, the second half is actually not too shabby, but still pretty tricky regardless, because you have to utilize with the homing attack with that particular enemy right there, because there are a couple of times where certain objects, or specifically certain items, are now appeared on mid-air. So for instance, there was actually the forms of that particular trick thing right there, and on top of that, the 5 rings you need to utilize with the forms of that specific well-timing jump and what have you. So yeah, for the most part, the first half is brutal. So because of that though, thankfully it did took me about 1 attempt when it comes to the forms of trying to able to pass this point, because unlike back in the day, my god, I have so many errors during that specific performances when it comes to able to experience this entire special stage itself. You know, very similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic Advance 1 for its depth perception, and Sonic Advance 2 with all its ring chain system, and on top of that with Special Stage 7 in Sonic Advance 3. My goodness, I still find that special stage brutally hard, mainly because of this very unexpected AI behavior with those little bullet bill kind of enemies or something. So, but even then though, there we go folks, the 7th and the final Chaos Emerald has been obtained, and as a result, we are basically done with the special stages in Sonic Rush. So because of that though, whilst unlike in Journey Forms Within Blaze's story, which we'll get to that at some point on Wednesday, I believe she's the only one that she's not going to be able to experience the actual special stages themselves, which you'll see why until whenever we get to Blaze's playthrough basically. So because of that though, now as far as the forms of the useful hint I was on about familiar, is that if you keep on failing the actual special stage, luckily though you can able to actually grind many of your attention gauge by simply able to actually hop onto the cannon, and basically though if you're trying to keep on performing certain tricks and what have you, and basically though that way you can get multiple tries to able to actually go ahead and try to deal with that special stage again. So it's definitely a little bit more better system than the forms of how it does it in not only for Sonic Advance 1, but also with Sonic Advance 2, alongside with Sonic Advance 3 as well. Just because, thank goodness, we don't need to able to actually hunting for those ridiculous amount of collectibles as far as I'm aware. So generally speaking, I was about the fact that that was the actual useful tip I can probably think about. But anyways, let's get into the forms of this entire stage about the forms of Deadline as far as the forms of the 7th zone as far as this is concerned. This stage is actually, well, I won't say it's hard by any means. I mean, it is definitely really cool though. I mean, what I can tell is that I definitely recognize the music in the background, well, not so much the invincibility theme right there, but to be more accurate though, is the actual stage theme, and that particular song is actually called What You Need, because for those of you ever following through our Let's Play of Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, to be more specifically, in Mission Mode, you do realize about the fact that What You Need song was actually brought back in Journey Forms Within not 1, not 2, but 3 tracks based off of the sake of the forms of Final Fortress Racetrack in Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing for the sake of not only Turbine Loop, as well as Dark Arsenal, and finally Thunder Deck. So because of that though, yeah, pretty cool honestly. So because of that though, oh yeah, every once in a while though is about the fact that yes indeed, we have to deal with the forms of the anti-gravity sections right here. Something very similar to the forms of how it does it in the Death Egg Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, alongside with the forms of Egg Utopia Zone from the likes of Sonic Advance 2, and even especially noticeable with the forms of Cybertrack from the likes of Sonic Advance 3. At least that's what I was expecting for this point, but either way. So yeah, let's just move on now to Act 2. I was quite surprised about the fact that we actually did Act 1 no problem, but as far as I'm aware, it's about the fact that a lot of people seem to get frustrated with the forms of those rockets, and because of that though, sometimes it's a bit tricky to explain, but I do know for certain for one thing is about the fact that I believe those cannons are not too shabby, especially noticeable because all you have to really do is just aim at the right angle, especially noticeable because if you aim at the wrong angle, obviously it can lead you to death, or in some cases alternative paths. So because of that though, relatively speaking though, there's also some sections where basically those about the fact that we have to run onto that specific weird green walls as far as I'm aware, or green holograms as far as we can able to hop into. And of course, just like the forms of how it does it in Mirage Road, alongside with the forms of in Huge Crisis, is that every once in a while though as well, we still need to able to try to take down all kinds of enemies in a singular room before we progress. So because of that though, and fundamentally speaking though, is about the fact that this might actually be the final platforming level in Journey Forms Within Sonic Rush. Well, to be more specifically in Sonic's story, and as far as I'm aware, that could be also applied to Blaze's story as well. But then again though, we'll get to the Forms Within Blaze's story and during at some point, as I said before. And until this Wednesday coming up. Because as far as I'm aware, yeah, today's date, of course, there is the 13th of May today. In some cases in 2024 today. So generally speaking out is about the fact that I believe we've only got about exactly 10 more days to go until Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Switch Remake is definitely coming out. So because of that though, still I'm basically excited for it, and I cannot wait able to actually know about the forms of how the review scores actually turns out to be. But I'm sure we'll find out more details about that until specifically next week. So because of that though, I'm pretty sure the review scores might be up during at some point until next Tuesday, as far as I'm aware. Like, to be more specifically, on the 21st of May, I'm pretty sure that's where it's at. So, hopefully, though, that game will be able to receive some very genuinely favorable reviews. Or, to be more accurate, though, some very good reviews. Because unlike the forms of how it does it on, you know what I'm saying, with Endless Ocean Luminous, my goodness, there's a lot of negative reviews out there, especially noticeable because what I've heard, there are some good stuff here and there, and there's also some bad things, for I found out anyway, due to the forms of likely also for its technical issues or something. I'm not exactly 100% sure about that, honestly, because I still haven't exactly owned that game that much, because obviously though, Endless Ocean is not my cup of tea or anything, because I'm biased when it comes to the forms of preferring certain franchises, as you probably already expect. So anyway, so we meet again with the forms of those familiar Eggman's robots right here, including with the egg hammers as well. So, relatively speaking, everything else will be pretty self-explanatory. So, either way though. So, let's get to the forms of the rockets in this stage. Is that, I believe in order able to actually just to, you know, guide the rockets upwards, is that I believe you got able to slightly tap the directional pad within either left or right, which, if I recall correctly, we need to able to press the right button onto the actual D-pad or something. Well, mind you, it's been a very long time since I actually experienced this stage, since on the original DS physical copy version of the game, mind you, for that particular point. So even then though, and there's the final special generator right there, in case if you're curious. So yeah, this is the last part right there, and yeah, if you failed at one point on this ending part, you die automatically, because there's a bottomless pit down below. What I will say is about the fact that the actual stage itself is actually not too shabby around here. Well, the only time exception being is, of course, those stupid rockets right there, because they are quite tricky to control. I'm not gonna lie for saying that. Well, that's just mainly because I've noticed that some people seem to able to complain about with the forms of you have to use the rockets at all costs in order to able to actually progress, because otherwise though is that if you accidentally just crash into any of those walls, you fell down to the pit and you have to retry that particular segment again. So because of that though, that's the only downside I can probably think about this level, but apart from that, piece of cake to me. Except the fact I did die twice during the ending section in Deadline. So I'm okay with that, even though despite the fact that I've lost a whole bunch of rings, so I can able to actually guarantee to get myself my glorious S rank, which so far, I've never actually got any of those S ranks so far, which is kind of surprising, honestly, because I know for a fact that sometimes, though, with the forms of Altitude's Limits did give me a hard time at one point, but either way. Oh, looks like we've met up with Blaze, so it looks like no matter what, though, unlike the forms of how it does it on any other bosses in this game so far, basically though, we sometimes managed able to fight against with the forms of not only Eggman, during the forms of in the first zone in Leaf Storm, and as far as I'm aware, we did somehow manage able to beat Eggman Nigga for about a grand total of 5 times so far, not counting the forms of the first zone, by the way, because obviously we've already taken care of Eggman as far as this is concerned. So I believe that this entire boss battle is going to be a character battle, something very similar to the forms of how it does it in not only Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Knuckles, but it's also with the forms of maybe Metal Knuckles, or Mecha Knuckles, or Metal Knuckles in Sonic Advance 1 in Angel Island Zone, as well as the forms of several of character battles in the 3D Sonic games, ranging from Sonic vs. Knuckles, Tails vs. Knuckles, and Knuckles vs. Sonic. And also same applies with the forms of Sonic vs. Shadow, and Shadow vs. Sonic, and you name the rest. So because of that though, yeah, it looks like no matter what though, it's about the fact that Blaze has actually had enough to able to actually realize that, yeah, we have a fight against her. So because of that though, meanwhile for Eggman NECA, he's just gonna sit back and watch, and because of that though, yeah, it's time to duel against with Blaze the Cat. So, yeah, this will be interesting. So, anyways, there are a few things I want to talk about is, in regards to the forms of what is going on, and that's what appears to be about the fact that, speaking of which though, is that I think we're actually getting pretty close, to a point where the fact that we've almost there, at the halfway point, in terms of May already, before we move on to June. So because of that though, yeah, we'll explain more about that until for later, because as you can tell, we have to dodge a lot of Blaze's attacks, ranging from this little homing attack kind of thing, and on top of that, with the forms of that particular flame thing, spin dash technique or something. But regardless of everything else though, you have to wait until when she stands perfectly still, and otherwise though, you weren't able to actually get a chance to hit her. So because of that though, yeah, relatively a kind of a tricky fight, but regardless of such though, as soon as you're able to get the good timing going, mind you about the fact that sometimes I managed to keep on getting countered or anything else like that, and sometimes I keep on getting hit sometimes. So yeah, anyway, if you think this entire battle is over, well, actually, as it turns out, there was actually one last thing we need to take care of. And you guys even remember during the Forms Within Altitude's Limits boss fight that we have to occasionally have to do button mashing with A and B simultaneously? Well, think about that, except we have to do this for the majority of this last phase of the fight, and oh boy, this is gonna be quite fun, wasn't it? Alright, here we go. Time to deal with you, Blaze, by simply doing a whole bunch of button mashing! Come on! Oh jeez, you have to do this like really dang fast too! Oh my god, it reminds me of so much of a Mario Party minigame almost. Come on, she's almost over. And there we go. Oh, wait. God, that's a lot of button mashing I have to deal with right there. Even though, despite the fact that Eggman NECA did somehow got away again, despite the fact that we didn't deal with him, because otherwise, though, we've already did manage to take care of Blaze after all. So, either way, though, wowzers, that was, quite an interesting fight. So, either way, let's see how well I did. And as it turns out, I somehow received my very first glorious S rank on this run. So yeah, better late than never, I suppose. Especially noticeable because, like I said before, in order able to actually get an S rank on boss fights, you have to reach for about 50,000 points. Whilst meanwhile, for certain regular levels, you have to reach for about, I would say 100,000 points, I'm pretty sure. So even then though, so yeah. That's what I can really say about the forms of deadline as far as the 7th zone is concerned. I mean, mind you, about the fact that we've already got all these Chaos Emeralds now, so everything else should be a lot more pleasant. Am I right? Well, actually, as it turns out, there's actually going to be more to it than that, because you see, after this particular conversation with the forms of the whole introduction into, with Sonic and Blaze somehow managed to introduce to each other, like, I am Sonic the Hedgehog, it's nice to meet you, and obviously Blaze will say, like, I am Blaze, it's nice to meet you too, I guess. So because of that though, yeah, it seems that it happens quite fast, doesn't it? With all that particular, Sonic and Blaze have now become friends now, so because of that though, yeah. And something tells me something bad is about to happen, because it looks like the actual space-time continuum is gonna get a lot more expansive. So because of that though, and relatively speaking though, according to the forms of that particular moments where basically that something is about to happen. So anyways, one of the subject for this point though is about the fact that recently, what I've noticed something is about the fact that there was actually this particular series called Sausage Party Foodtopia. Obviously, that particular series is based off on that particular adult humor focused movie called Sausage Party, and basically though, that particular series will receive the actual release date just recently, since, I would say since in 12 days ago, and that's what it appears to be is going to be releasing until the 11th of July. So, and The only thing is worth noting for, it's only exclusive to Prime Video, specifically Amazon Prime Video. So because of that though, I will say I'm probably not going to miss out on that much though, because obviously though, I found the actual film itself very bizarre, and it's also very odd too. Mind you, it does have Seth Rogen, which that was before when he voiced not only obviously Donkey Kong from the likes of the Super Mario Bros. Movie after all, but also he did somehow performed Mantis from the likes of the Kung Fu Panda films, specifically 1, 2, and 3, except 4, because, well, we're probably not going to mention any spoilers for that particular film from now on. So anyway, so here we go on to the final zone in Sonic's story, and as it turns out, it only contains one boss. So because of that though, let's settle with the forms of Eggman NECA once and for all. And this is, without doubt, is the hardest level in the whole entire game, and it's also one of the hardest bosses in the entire game, actually, assuming, of course, if depending on what difficulty you select. So basically, here we have ourselves this particular ginormous boss right here, which, again, I will mention about the forms of the boss's name, and doing that specifically on Blaze's playthrough. So because of that, though, yeah, all you have to really do in this battle right here is that you have to dodge a lot of his attacks, by the way, and basically, though, as soon as when he does that, you have to jump onto that particular hand, and basically, though, once he's doing this, you have to dodge a lot of those shockwaves, and once you're able to try to do this, you have to quickly run up to its cockpit, and basically, though, that is your chance to able to attack him. So because of that, though, and this is where the boss fight itself gets extremely difficult early on, mainly because his attacks are not only unpredictable to dodge, but it's also about the fact that one of his attacks in general will crush you to death. So because of that though, yeah, I can totally see why that some players managed able to set the game on easy mode to make things a little bit more of an easier experience when it comes to this boss fight. Especially noticeable about the fact that, well, I will say, this particular theme music in the background, it sounds super duper awesome. I'll let you guys listen to this song for a few moments notice, and then we'll get back into the forms of the commentary. So enjoy the music, folks. Wow, that music is so awesome to listen to. But anyways, even though despite the fact I keep on getting hit most of my time right there, because let's face it though, this boss is really difficult, even on normal mode of all things. So, and every once in a while though, it's about the fact that we need to dodge a lot of his other attacks as well, ranging from the forms of the laser, and there's also this very annoying pink electric attack that he just keeps on like trying to able to disrupt you. And of course, every once in a while though, if you think about the fact that we're doing quite well sometime, every once in a while his attacks goes ridiculously fast when he decides able to actually summon those shockwaves you definitely have to avoid. And it's also worth noting for, this is on normal mode by the way, he does have himself the actual projectile attack that he decides able to spring out, or specifically trying to bring out, and basically you have to avoid that very, very odd gray object that he did somehow manage to send it out. Like, for instance, if we just somehow managed able to walk onto his arm, basically though is about the fact you know exactly what I'm about to say. So because of that though, yeah, those things right here, that you can technically jump on them, so that way you can able to get rid of them, but you gonna have to able to try to jump at them, so just to ensure if you don't do this on the other hand, you're about to get hit. So because of that though, okay, so this is the attack that I was talking about. Basically though, he summons this very annoying electric thing, whatever this is supposed to be, and basically though, sometimes you have to be very cautious and be very careful with this, because otherwise, again, the movements is a little bit chaotic, and on top of all that stuff though, yeah, it's definitely a little bit annoying to deal with. So, but oh jeez Louise, so much to dodge. But either way, thankfully though, we've only got 2 hits left, so either way though, oh goodness gracious me. Okay, there we go. Oh yeah, something tells me it's about the fact that we need to press the directional pad down, so just in case you definitely need to hang on to its arm, because otherwise, if you don't press the directional pad down, basically though, you get fluked out of the actual arm, and it just places you back onto that particular arena. So, if you think this entire battle is done, well, we've only got 1 hit left, so I'll crush you, Sonic! Oh, you really think so, Eggman NECA? So basically, he decides able to charge right at you for about not once, not twice, but 3 times. But basically, this last hit is by far the easiest, because obviously though, all you have to do is just keep on jumping into him, and there we go. Even though the entire final zone is actually called Unknown. So, yeah, I somehow forgot to mention about that. So, anyway, there we go. Sonic's story is fully completed. In addition, with all 7 Chaos Emeralds has been obtained. So, there we go. So, let's enjoy the ending to Sonic's story. And that was it for Sonic Rush, at least to be more specifically Sonic's story. And I love the fact that in Journey Forms the actual credit sequence right here, not only do we somehow manage able to see some illustrations as you saw from that particular ending of Sonic's story, but also in Journey Forms the credit sequence right now, we somehow stumbled across into ourselves the Sonic Event sprites with not only with Sonic but also with Amy as well, which I think is actually quite a cool touch, especially concerning for the fact that this game did came out right after Sonic Advance 3, at least to be more specifically, it was being made by Dimps and all that stuff. So because of that though, yeah, I actually had a really good time playing this game so far. Mind you about the fact that we're still not exactly done with this game just yet, because as far as I'm aware, we're now on to the halfway point in Sonic Rush already. Because as far as I'm aware, we still need to able to actually go into Blaze's story now, so because of that though, that'll be up next in terms the forms of Sonic Rush actually plays out to be. And as far as I'm aware, is that when you beat the game for the first time, either with the forms of Sonic's story or Blaze's story, I believe we'll only have to unlock 2 of those things, which there are sound tests, which is pretty self-explanatory. You can be able to listen to the in-game background music, and on top of that with the forms of time attack as well, so you can be able to actually replay through not only certain stages but also with certain bosses as well, similar to the forms of how it does it in Sonic Advance, Sonic Advance 2, alongside with Sonic Advance 3 as well. So yeah, you probably get the idea for that. So, oh, and recently today, about the fact that I've decided able to come back into Sonic Dash just recently to obviously trying to able to unlock a yet another cosmetic character for Cream the Rabbit, to be more specifically Drama Cream. So because of that though, yeah, I'm in the middle of the process of trying to unlock her just before Metal Sonic version 3.0. So because of that though, yeah, I'm a little bit more optimistic to know about the forms of how the fact that, well, still I'm gonna able to try to able to keep on collecting some more character cards. That's the only drawback I can probably think about. But aside from all that stuff though, yeah, I still need to try to get used to it, I guess. So yeah. Nothing else I can really say about this, I'm afraid, guys, apart from the fact that, well, as far as I'm aware, that I was so glad able to actually just to get into this game for you guys, especially noticeable because after, you know what I'm saying, after 3 years since in Sonic Advance 3, that it's about, you know, it's about time, you know. So with that being said, folks, it's about the fact that we are, presumably speaking of, we got the endings off this point right here. However though, if you don't collect all the Chaos Emeralds, Eggman Neko will tell you about the fact that you need to collect all the Chaos Emeralds, so self-explanatory stuff, you know. So with that being said, folks, is that we get the endings off this point right here. So join me next time for more of Let's Play of Sonic Rush. Is that we're about to get started with Blaze's story to see what her perspective actually brings out to be. So this will be interesting to say the least. So I'll see you guys until on Wednesday. Later, fellas.